level, on the go.
An officer shot. It's currently 86 degrees on Monument Circle. I'm Wes Woodward, and here's what's trending at 5:03. Indy Metro Police are investigating after an officer was shot Friday night near East 36 and North Whitfield Streets. Sasha Nixon reports.
Officers learned about a shooting in the area around 8:40 p.m. But while they were there, someone fired shots, hitting a house and one officer.
The officer is in a stable condition. He had surgery with one gunshot wound to his abdomen and one to his right arm, and is expected to make a full recovery, although he's going to be in the hospital for some days.
That's IMPD Chief Chris Bailey. If you know anything about this, please call the IMPD Homicide Office or Crime Stoppers. Learn more at WIBC.com. Sasha Nixon, 93, WIBC Mobile News.
State police are trying to answer several questions in their investigation into a car crash that killed a 9-year-old boy. Here's Ryan Hedrick.
Inspectors are looking at the semi-truck that collided with the car on 465 Thursday night. State Police Sergeant John Perrine says it seems as if the driver shouldn't have been driving.
Last night it was believed to be some issues with compliance of on-duty hours for the driver, and maybe even some issues with the truck as well. So they're looking into a lot of that.
Perrine says the truck hit 3 cars. 2 people in the car where the boy died were hurt. Ryan Hedrick, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
A kickback scheme is why a former South Bend city leader is heading to prison. Kurt Darling reports.
As director of South Bend's Housing Authority, Albert Smith and a group of others with the organization paid contractors for work that never actually took place. The contractors would then take that cash and kick a portion of it back to Smith and the others. In all, court documents say the scheme defrauded the Housing Authority out of about $3 million. Smith will be going away for 12 years. Kirk Darling, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
Here's your forecast in the American Standard Cooling Weather Center.
Partly cloudy skies heading into the afternoon today. It is going to be a warm one with highs right around 86. Becomes more muggy, mild tonight under cloudy skies with lows near 68. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Tara Hastings for 93 WIBC.
I'm Wes Woodward, on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
911, what's your emergency?
Por favor, necesito ayuda. Está borracho y creo que me va a pegar otra vez.
I will get someone to speak with you. Please stay on the line.
Hola, tengo su ubicación. Ayuda está en camino.
Getting past a language barrier is critical when first responders help Hoosiers. That's why the State 911 Board provides special tools for non-English speaking citizens to communicate with emergency services.
Si estás en peligro, aunque no hables inglés, podrás recibir ayuda en una emergencia rápidamente.
All Indiana 911 centers began offering translation services in over 240 languages in 2019. Now, people can send text messages for help in their native language to 911 and receive a translated text back from the dispatcher. It's of great help to the deaf and speech impaired and to those in select dangerous situations.
Cuando llame o envíe un texto al 911, un servicio de traducción se asegurará que entiendan lo que está diciendo.
For more information, visit in911.net.
Gracias.
911. Before you text, voice is best.
Want to find out what real retirement planning is all about? Tune in to Expedition Retirement with Greg Ayler, Sunday mornings at 7 on WIBC.
The Indianapolis Public Library. More than just books. Visit your local branch today.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment, and this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. We're thrilled that you're with us. Hope you're enjoying the spectacular Indianapolis, Central Indiana afternoon. It's absolutely beautiful out there. Hope you got out and were able to exercise your Second Amendment rights. A lot going on, obviously, on the political front. We talked quite a bit about the assassination attempt on former President Trump. Talked a lot about the likelihood that President Biden was going to remain in the race. Obviously, he answered that question last Sunday. And we now have Kamala Harris as the presumptive nominee. Presumptive, meaning We won't truly know until after the end of the Democrat National Convention, but it's certainly starting to align in every way to look like she's going to be the candidate. And Democrats, liberals, the progressives are all excited. Her poll numbers appear positive. They're announcing that the lead that President Trump had in the polls over President Biden have all been erased for the most part by presumptive nominee Kamala Harris, and they're all just a flitter over that. Predominantly in my mind, because she hasn't had to do anything or say anything. I think the Democrats and liberals, those people who want to see the defeat of former President Trump, are just relieved that they don't have a completely incompetent, senile old guy that constantly embarrasses them as now their candidate, and they're all excited. They've got somebody younger and somewhat more competent, although if you hear Kamala Harris talk very much, the more you hear her talk, and the more you go back and listen to her public speeches, her public comments, her interviews, and whatnot over time, I'm not sure it's a significant upgrade. But obviously she's dramatically younger, and she doesn't have this obvious senility problem that President Biden does. And people are excited about that. But what we want to talk about is, what do we expect to see on the Second Amendment front for the remainder of President Biden's term? And what would, God forbid, and it makes me cringe a little bit to say it, what would a President Kamala Harris mean for Second Amendment rights? And if you're listening to the radio right now, you're probably rolling your eyes a little bit going, well, hell, it'd be a disaster. Well, would it be more of a disaster than a President Biden? I mean, Biden ran on gun control. He appointed Kamala the head of this newly created, last year, the new White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Who did he put in charge of that? Just like, even though now everybody wants to deny it on the Democrat side, the liberal side, everybody wants to deny that she was border czar. Obviously she was. It was publicly announced. Biden said it multiple times. She was clearly the border czar, although they're trying to run away from that. And by the way, and I'm sure you've heard this point made before, but if the border really is secure, as you keep hearing from Biden, as you've heard from Kamala Harris, if they're totally confident in their strategy and their performance on the border, why are they trying so hard to distance Kamala Harris from ever having been the border czar, to the point of completely recreating history? I mean, isn't that a complete admission that it's been an absolute failure on the border? It seems to me it is. But we can also now look to the, again, relatively new, about a year old, White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. What has that accomplished? Well, not a lot. But that doesn't really answer the question of what would it look like to have a Kamala Harris in the White House as president. We're going to get into both those things, including, as I said, what can we expect for the rest of Biden's term? And one thing that's coming, and I put this out on social media, I fully expect to talk more about this on Monday, Gun Day with Hammer and Nigel, but President Biden just announced he's going to have his Supreme Court reform package announced early this week, probably Monday. And I posted that, and I put it on both Twitter or X and Facebook. And I said, in addition to the link came from Newsmax, I believe, on this expectation that we're going to see Biden come out and propose various quote-unquote Supreme Court reforms. And when I put it on social media, and find this on Twitter or X, give me a follow while you're there. By the way, I'm trying to build that up. I've been more and more active on Twitter, and I'm trying to build those numbers up. So if you go on there, give me a follow while you're there. But what I said as the introduction to this link on Biden's Supreme Court reform package is, you want to know why the founders believed that the separation of powers among the three branches of government, the executive, the judicial, and the legislative. Do you know why the founders believed that the separation of powers with a series of checks and balances, but above all, separation of power, it didn't allow the vesting of power and a disproportionate amount of power in any one branch, why the founders believed that to be critical to maintaining liberty in this country? Look no further than Exhibit A, and as Exhibit A, I give you Biden coming out and announcing what he proposes to be Supreme Court reform. I'm sorry, the Supreme Court is there, Mr. President, as a check and a balance on your abuse of power. And you, as an independent branch of government, leading up the executive branch, and yes, that's the job you have under Article 2 of the Constitution. You are the chief executive. That's your job. We get it. But the Supreme Court is a wholly separate branch of government, and they are to have autonomy, and they are to act independently. And the idea of you, quote unquote, reforming the court to meet your political objectives is antithetical. It is absolutely 180 degrees of the way the founders saw the structure of this government and most importantly, the mechanisms put in place by this beautiful document, the Constitution, in order to preserve liberty in this country. It goes right back to the Declaration of Independence, a completely separate document, obviously, that has no real force of law. But what's in the Declaration of Independence is really illustrative. It's a beautiful guide to what a lot of the same people that wrote the Declaration of Independence were directly involved in drafting the Constitution, and what they had in mind and why they put the particular provisions in the Constitution that they did. And as somebody who makes a living off defending constitutional rights, you drive by my office in Carmel right there at Range Line in Maine, the sign hanging out outside my office says, the Law Office of Guy A. Relford, defending the American Constitution. That's what I do. And it's something I'm passionate about. But in looking at the Declaration of Independence, where it talks about, everybody wants to talk about the phrase that Biden couldn't quite get right. He said, you know the thing. Where we hold these truths to be self-evident. And everybody wants to talk about we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's absolutely true. And there's no doubt about that. Unalienable being the key term, meaning a government can't take them away from you because they didn't come from you. They didn't come from the government. They come from our Creator. They come from God. That's a key point. But what comes right after that is something I talk about often. Because it says to preserve these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. To protect, to preserve these rights, governments are instituted among men. That's government's job. And the best structure of government that these same people who drafted the Declaration of Independence could come up with absolutely insisted upon and is a central principle of separation of powers. So am I on my soapbox a little bit? Yes, but it's something I'm passionate about. And a president announcing quote unquote Supreme Court reform is like fingernails on a blackboard to me. No, that's not the way it's supposed to work. So what is he likely to propose? Would it be constitutional? What's the history of what presidents have attempted to do vis-a-vis the Supreme Court, whether we're talking about packing the Supreme Court, and there are a lot of Democrats, both in Congress and those out there being activists, want to see, quote-unquote, packing of the Supreme Court. What does that mean? How likely is that? Has it been done before? Get into all those issues. And more importantly, if you're listening to the Gun Guy Show, or at least as important, how is that likely to impact our Second Amendment rights? We'll get into all of that and take your calls for the remainder of the show. 317-239-9393. 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
The Republicans under Holcomb have willfully been the party of big taxes and big government. That's not in dispute. That's not me being negative. I mean, look, your taxes have never been higher. The government, the budget, the role of government in the state has never been bigger. So we'll find out. We're going to find out. Does Braun believe Indiana's headed in a good direction under Holcomb? He'll get a fair shake. Rainwater is going to be with us on Monday.
Kendall and Casey. Weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Indiana Gun Club. You know, Indiana Gun Club is Indy's premier shotgun club. They're located in Fortville, just minutes from Indy, really right there by Geist on the northeast side. They have over 2,000 guns in inventory. They've got a beautiful clubhouse and 150 acres that offers trap, skeet, and sporting clays, and 5-stand, which is a lot of fun. It's where I learned to shoot sporting clays. It's my home club for the sporting clay tournaments that I like to shoot in, and I love shooting up there. I love teaching. I love to learn, not just a few years ago, really, when I got into sporting clays. They host tournaments of all kind, and they can have your event, whether it's a corporate event, a fundraiser, team building for your work team, what client relations, even bachelor parties. They can handle it right there at Indiana Gun Club and cater in a beautiful meal. My friend Gordon Gamilla, who's been a guest right here on the show, is a trained chef, and he has put on some amazing meals right there at Indiana Gun Club. He's the events coordinator, and he's the guy to contact there at Indiana Gun Club. So you don't have to be a member. You can just stop by if you want to learn how to shoot sporting clays. You can arrange for a lesson while you're there. You can bring someone more experienced, and the two of you can learn together. It's a great experience all the way around. Located at 14926 East 113th Street. There in Fortville. Also, IndianaGunClub.com will give you all the details you need. Don't forget, they're a great place to shop for high-end firearms. It's where I bought some beautiful handguns, including my Wilson Combats and my Ed Brown, right there at Indiana Gun Club. That's Indiana Gun Club, located in Fortville. Check them out at IndianaGunClub.com.
It's the first day of the first grade, and she found a new best friend. It's a laid-back Sunday afternoon you wish would never end.
The homemade taste of Bluebell and good friends gathered round. The good old days are being made right now.
The new Bluebell Cookies and Cream Cheesecake is cheesecake ice cream with chocolate cookie-crusted cheesecake pieces and chocolate cream-filled cookies. Again, cheesecake ice cream with chocolate cookie-crusted cheesecake pieces and chocolate cream-filled cookies. Buy two.
The good old days are being made right now.
The good old days are being made right now.
Look for Bluebell ice cream at your favorite grocer. If you can't find it, please ask for it.
Hi, this is Denny Smith, and July is National Carpet Cleaning Month, and it couldn't come at a better time of year. If you haven't cleaned your carpets this year, Zero Res is giving you a heck of a deal to schedule something now. Get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $129. Get a 4th room free, which is $115 savings, and $75 off air duct cleaning. It's the best way I know to rid your carpets of all the deeply embedded dirt and dander and nasty bacteria, not to mention those uglies that you can see. The patented Zero Res process cleans better than anything on the market. Surfaces dry faster, and your home and business will stay cleaner longer. The ZR Water Difference uses no soap, leaves no residue, and there are no harsh chemicals because they just aren't needed to get things really clean. Now mention WIBC and get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting at $129. Plus you'll get a 4th room free and $75 off air duct cleaning too. Call 317-388-5141 or book things online at ZeroResIndy.com.
The deals keep coming at Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield. Tony Katz here at Andy Moore Ford. The people, the selection, the service, everything you want. Shop their wide selection of certified pre-owned vehicles, all marked with more savings, so you can be sure you're driving home with the best deal. And their commercial truck center is currently undergoing big changes, which means bigger and better things for you coming soon. Stop by today. Check out every vehicle they have on the lot and all the electric vehicles they've got. The Mustang Mach-E, the E-Transit, and that F-150 Lightning. all in stock with more arriving daily. The all-electric F-150 Lightning has you covered with seating up to 5, intelligent backup power, and onboard power for all your tools and gear. And they've got the incentives, the rebates, the federal, the state incentives that can save you up to $7,500 instantly on site. Talk to Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield about your new car, your new truck, or your new electric vehicle. Andy Moore Ford, M-O-H-R. AndyMooreFord.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Buying a diamond has changed. There are mined and lab-grown diamonds. Pierce Jewelers carries both. Pierce can educate you and save your hard-earned money. Shop local. Shop smart. Shop Pierce Jewelers. Indy Humane. Find your new best friend today. Visit indyhumane.org.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So Biden says he's going to announce his Supreme Court reform package. Well, first of all, what can President Biden do independently relative to the Supreme Court? Really nothing. He can go to Congress and ask Congress to make changes. What changes can Congress make? Well, first of all, in terms of the number of Supreme Court justices, do you know that has actually changed over the years 6 different times? It's been increased, it's been decreased. The original Supreme Court, according to an act passed by the original Congress, goes all the way back to 1789, the year that the Constitution was ratified, said there shall be 6, because the Constitution itself doesn't say how many. You go to Article 3 of the Constitution, and Article 3 of the Constitution simply says the judicial power, this is Section 1 of Article 3, the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme Court and inferior court, it goes on from there, but it doesn't say how many. And it gives Congress the ability to establish the inferior court. So in the federal system, what do we have? Well, we have a number of circuit courts of appeal. Those are the federal courts that oversee a certain number of states in terms of the federal district courts that reside in those various states. So, for instance, Indiana has 2 federal districts, the Northern District of Indiana and the Southern District of Indiana. Those 2 courts here in Indiana are within the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, based in Chicago, but it oversees Indiana and a couple other Midwestern states. And there are a number then of those federal circuits, and then the next level up from there is the Supreme Court. But the Constitution doesn't tell us how many justices there should be. So the original Congress said, well, we're going to have 6. Interesting to me that it was an even number. It sets up the ability for a tie, which would mean a lot of the lower court decisions would likely be upheld, because if it's a tie, then the lower decision isn't overturned and the lower decision stays in place. But it started at 6. Actually, at one point was reduced to 5. There was a bunch of sparring back and forth between Adams and Jefferson as they were each president, and they were jousting with each other over the respective levels of power, and going back to the number of Supreme Court justices was seen as a way of contributing to one side or the other. So, but they had to go to Congress and ask Congress to change the number. And at one point, we're from 6 to 5. Well, then it went back to 6. And then then Congress played around with it up through the Civil War. And ultimately in 1869, under President Ulysses S. Grant, at his request, Congress fixed the number at 9, and it's been 9 since 1869. Could Congress change the number again? Yes, they've done it before. So when it comes to Supreme Court packing, could Congress do it if they had the votes? The answer to that is yes. Well, Biden's Supreme Court reform package, quote unquote, asked Congress to do that. That will remain to be seen. Because you know what? You need to be careful as a Republican or a Democrat when you take these moves, you make these decisions, you take these actions because it feels good at the time, and it may be expeditious for what you're trying to accomplish in the moment, but you got to live with that historically and well into the future. And the so-called nuclear option on confirmation of nominees, Democrats learned that the hard way. They're the ones who set that aside for lower court judicial nominees and said, you know what, we don't need a 2/3 majority. We can go to a mere majority because they could control that at the time. And lo and behold, under Trump, when Republicans had a majority in the Senate, Trump got all 3 of his Supreme Court justices confirmed by the Senate. Why? Because Republicans had the majority in the Senate, so they controlled the Judiciary Committee. President Trump made the nominations, and the Senate confirmed them. And that was all under a precedent set by the Democrats when they decided to go to a mere majority vote in the Senate to confirm judicial nominees. You got to live with your decisions. And so I'm sure cooler heads, anyway, among the Democrats are going to say, should we really increase the number of Supreme Court justices? Because depending on who wins presidential elections down the road and who maintains majority in the Senate, why just the Senate? Because that's where judicial nominees are confirmed, according to the Constitution. So depending on who holds the White House and who holds majority in the Senate, do you really want to take the number to 10 or 11 or 13, as I've heard some Democrats propose? We'll have to see if that's within the package, but it's a 2-step process. Does Biden believe it's a good move and thus propose it? And is Congress willing to go along with it? Now, when you had moderates like Sinema and Joe Manchin from West Virginia, Sinema from Arizona, who were Democrats, they each came out and said packing the court's a really bad idea. It's bad for both parties. It's too risky for both parties. They both opposed it. So it didn't look like it was going to happen. Well, after the next round of Senate elections, that's all going to change. Joe Manchin's not running for re-election, last I heard. I don't believe Kristen Sinema is either. So we'll have to see not only who holds majority in the Senate, but whether there are any moderate Democrats could stand in the way of a proposal like this. But what else are we likely to see from Biden? I'll tell you what, we're at the bottom of the hour. We'll take a break. We'll take your calls, as we always do here on the Gun Guy Show. Go back to our roots, man. I started here just as a fill-in host years ago. I'm in the 9th year of this show. Very early in the year, I thought I was coming up on 10 years, but I actually did my math wrong. Here this month, actually, July, it was 9 years, so I'm entering my 10th year anyway. But I started as a fill-in host where all I did was just answer the phone and answer people's questions, kind of like when I do Ask the Gun Guy when I'm filling in for Hammer or Nigel during the week. And so I want to maintain consistency with that background and those roots. And so we always want to take your calls during the show. So give us a call, 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
One thing I'm seeing right now is the hero tour for Joe Biden. All of these same people that were taking that dagger and putting it directly into his back politically, They're the ones saying, what a great American. Oh, look at Joe Biden. He was such a great president. Well, if that was the case, then why did you just fire him?
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Got several different cable news outlets and their sources reporting that home prices are actually expected to decline into 2025. And so right now you want to maximize your home sales price before this downturn with the only agent proven to sell for top dollar. That's Mark Deedle. Mitch from Martinsville's house is getting a little too big for him. He wanted to downsize. Heard about Mark on our radio show. He was able to get multiple offers within 48 hours and closed in 30 days.
And what separates Mark Deedle from the competition is the guarantee. Mark Deedle guarantees your home sold at a mutually agreed upon price and deadline, or he will buy it. You pick the move date, no long-term contracts. You can cancel at any time. That's what makes Mark Deedle the best. Call him today, 317-755-4232. That's 755-4232, or go to markdeedle.com. That's Mark, D-I-E-T-E-L, markdeedle.com. Tell him Hammer and Nigel sent you.
It's hot out there, and if you're tired of paying high utility bills every month because your home AC keeps running, it's because your windows aren't energy efficient. If yours are builder grade and over 8 years old, the seals are likely broken and air is leaking out, and you're paying the price in high utility bills all year long. Window Nation's high-quality windows are built to last a lifetime. Right now, for every 2 windows you buy, you'll get 2 windows free. There's no limit on how much you could save. Plus, you could save even more with 0 down and no interest or payments for 24 months.
And Window Nation's windows come with a lifetime warranty and can be installed in 1 day or less. They were even recently ranked highest on Forbes' list of best window installation companies in America. Stop paying more than you have to. Schedule a fast in-home estimate right now at 866-90-NATION or go to windownation.com.
This hour on WIBC, powered by Pierce Jewelers, Carmel's Diamond Engagement Ring Store.
Fox News, I'm Roger Stern. A Fox News poll shows the presidential race is competitive, with Kamala Harris as the presumptive Democratic nominee. Fox's Madeline Rivera.
Harris is enjoying a 6-point lead over former President Trump in Minnesota, but she's tied with Trump in Pennsylvania and Michigan at 49%. And Trump is ahead by 1 point in Wisconsin.
And Harris is making gains with so-called double haters, voters who dislike both former President Trump and President Biden. A Northern California wildfire has exploded in size.
The Park Fire is the biggest California blaze so far this year, destroying more than 130 structures and forcing evacuations in 4 counties.
Fox's Paul Stevens. The fire has burned an area larger than Los Angeles. America is listening to Fox News.
To celebrate Team USA going for gold, Xfinity is offering a gold medal deal. Now, through August 11th, get our best offer yet with 300 megabit Xfinity Internet and 1 line of unlimited mobile for just $35 a month for a year and a free 5G phone. And the action doesn't stop there. Save on some of the biggest names in streaming by adding the new Xfinity Stream Saver with Peacock, Apple TV Plus, and Netflix for just $15 a month. Don't wait. When the Olympic Games end, so does this deal. Go to Xfinity.com/Team USA. Call 1-800-XFINITY or visit a store today. Get the fastest connection to Paris with Xfinity, proud partner of Team USA.
Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Equipment taxes and fees extra and subject to change. After promo, regular rates apply to internet and mobile. Stream Saver price subject to change. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed. Free 5G phone requires eligible trade-in. Select models only.
Business owners and IT professionals, what is your goal today? Protecting your data, hardware removal and recycling, or ethical landfill-free recycling? Technology Recyclers is R2, Rios, and NAID certified. 100% landfill-free. We come to your business, provide a free pickup anywhere in Indiana, pick up your e-waste, and ensure 100% data destruction. One call, easy, safe, ethical recycling, and data destruction. Visit Technology Recyclers at tech-recyclers.com or call 1-800-237-3887.
3-time Grammy-nominated Joe Bonamassa. The Blues Deluxe Tour live. this summer only. Saturday, August 17th at the Marat Theater at Old National Center.
24-hour blues.
Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Playing the music that defined his career. Joe Bonamassa. Every show is a new event.
The show about gun rights, gun safety, and responsible gun ownership. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIPC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So one thing that Biden has apparently leaked out to the press that is going to be in his quote-unquote Supreme Court reform package. Again, that term is just so repugnant to me. You know, you're yes, the head of the executive branch. You're talking about a branch of government that's supposed to operate completely independently. You know, I think what you may see, because part of the Supreme Court's job is to rule on whether the actions, whether laws passed by Congress or actions taken by the president, are constitutional or not. And what I'm hoping to see out of this whole thing is, in fact, what turns out to be an executive branch reform package in the form of an opinion from the Supreme Court, which you're very likely to see. Why? Because I think what's going to be included in this is term limits, and that apparently has come from Biden. He's going to say, well, there should be term limits for Supreme Court justices. Well, first of all, why would he propose that? Why is it in his political best interest to look at term limits? And is he targeting any particular justices in doing so? Well, I think the most conservative justice on the Supreme Court, and certainly the greatest ally of the Second Amendment, because he is just incredibly good at demanding that Supreme Court opinions base their decisions on what the Constitution says and not on what it doesn't say. In other words, he's the guy who comes out and says, for instance, listen, states may regulate abortion, for instance. They may outlaw it if they want, but there is no constitutionally protected right to an abortion in the Constitution. It's just not there. That you know, you saw all this hysteria out there going, oh my God, the Supreme Court just said that all abortions are illegal. It said no such thing. It just said it's a state issue because there's no right to an abortion as guaranteed in the Constitution, because it's just not there. Why did they say that? Because it's not. And that doesn't make you pro-life, pro-choice, anti-abortion, pro-abortion for you to say that, or for anybody to say that. It wasn't anti-abortion or pro-abortion for the Supreme Court to say that. That's what gets so incredibly misconstrued. They just said it's not a right protected by the Constitution because it's just not there. So if you want to restrict abortion, go to your state legislature. You want to protect the right to an abortion, go to your state legislature. You can't go to the courts and rely on the United States Constitution because it's just not there. That he applies the words of the Constitution, what the Constitution says, not what he wishes it says, and not what the roar of the people, the vocal majority or minority, depending on who you're talking to, what they have to say about it. No, you interpret the document as written and as intended by the founders. And so I'm a huge fan of Clarence Thomas because he is an originalist. He looks at what the words say. He looks at the intent of the founders, and he bases his decision on that. He's also the longest tenured Supreme Court justice, having been on the Supreme Court since 1991. So if we're looking at term limits, somebody who's been on the court, 33 years, if my math is right, has got to be a target does it surprise me that Biden would come out with a proposal that would be targeted at Clarence Thomas? Of course not. Now, again, other conservative justices, I don't know that I necessarily put John Roberts in that boat, the Chief Justice, but he's only been on the bench since 2005. Alito has been on the bench since 2006. And then you get into some pretty young guys. And Amy Coney Barrett, I shouldn't include her within the description of guy. But she's just been on the bench since 2020. And again, I'm looking at what are generally considered to be the conservative justices. Brett Kavanaugh only since 2018 and Neil Gorsuch only since 2017. So term limits, quote unquote, aren't going to necessarily reach those three. But Alito, Thomas, and Roberts, with Thomas at the top of the list, would have to be sequentially the people most affected by that. Because then you've got the two other liberals, Elena Kagan, only been on the bench since 2010, and Sonia Sotomayor. I mean, no disrespect. I obviously put justice in front of this. Justice Sotomayor and Justice Kagan have only been on the bench since 2009, 2010, respectively. So not a horribly long period of time. So clearly you're going after Thomas here, and to some degree Alito. Would it make Biden and his followers, the other liberals, progressives, Democrats really, really happy to get rid of Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito? Absolutely. Would it make them really happy to get rid of those two with a Democrat in the White House and a Democrat control of the Senate? Oh, hell yes. So that's why he's doing it. That's why he's announcing term limits, but a whole separate question, and why I think the Supreme Court itself may have something to say about this, is what does the Constitution say? Let's go back to Article 3, that vests the judicial power in the Supreme Court. And here again, it says the judges, both of the Supreme Court and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior. Shall hold their offices during good behavior. Those words, as written in the Constitution, have been universally interpreted as meaning for life, unless you commit some impeachable offense that could get you kicked off. There we're talking about, for instance, high crimes and misdemeanors. So the Constitution shall hold their office during good behavior. It doesn't say for such period of time as fixed by Congress. It says no such thing. So if Biden comes out with a proposal for term limits for Supreme Court justices, do I think that's constitutional? Oh, hell no. I think it's specifically contrary to the terms of the Constitution. During good behavior means during good behavior. You can't say, well, just being on the court for X number of years is bad behavior. Who's going to interpret the Constitution that way? I don't know, maybe Sotomayor and Kagan will, and the newest Justice Jackson. Maybe that's how they'll see it. Well, good behavior means you haven't been there too long. It makes no damn sense. That's a ridiculous interpretation. And that's why I don't think this can go anywhere. And again, it goes back to the complete disdain and frankly, a disrespect that this administration has for the Constitution. And it seems to be this willingness to do things that are just blatantly unconstitutional and just throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And the example a lot of people give, and I think it's a good one, is when Biden, just through executive action, people like to use the term forgave student loan debt. He didn't forgive anything. He just transferred it from the people who actually took out the loans to the taxpayers. I mean, the people who made the loans are still going to get paid back. It's just going to be by the government, not by the person who actually received the benefit of the money to receive an education. And you know what? If you got a degree in basket weaving, or yes, the term often used, feminine studies, and can't make a living with that, if you went back and got your degree in pre-Byzantine archaeology, because that was interesting to you, God bless you. I ended up with a double major in political science and psychology just because I liked psychology and enjoyed taking it. So I understand the point. But I also had in mind how I might use my college education to, for instance, go to law school and make a living. But Biden was absolutely willing, by executive action, to shift all that debt from the actual debtors and send it off to the taxpayer, knowing he didn't have the ability to do it. Hell, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, said the president doesn't have the ability to do it, and he did it anyway. And, there's this little thing called an oath you take when you become president. You put your hand on a Bible. And I don't have that oath in front of me, but as I remember, it says something along the lines of promote and defend, preserve, protect, and defend, I believe are the words, the Constitution of the United States. How can you take that oath and turn around and do something you know to be unconstitutional? I don't get it. But if the Constitution says the Supreme Court justices will hold their seat for quote-unquote good behavior, how the hell do you impose term limits on top of that? I don't know. Well, maybe we'll see that announcement tomorrow, and we'll get an explanation from the person currently sitting in the White House. Well, all right, when we come back, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about, okay, it looks like we know Biden's out, right? We announced that last Sunday, since my last show. And the presumptive nominee is Kamala Harris. What's that going to look like in terms of your Second Amendment rights if, God forbid, she's elected? We'll talk more about that. And by the way, it's not just a matter of if she's elected, it's what issues ought to be front and center during the remainder of the campaign before the election in November, and what we ought to be talking about what a nightmare she'd be for Second Amendment rights in this country. That's what we'll talk about when we come back, and take your calls, 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
To hear the president tell it, he was fine with running for re-election and served for 4 more years until sometime between Saturday night and Sunday morning when it dawned on him, apparently, that it was time for a new generation of leaders.
History happens here.
History in the making tonight.
On your 2024 election information station.
We have a long way to November.
93 WIBC.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our most popular class is Essentials of Indiana Gun Law. We've got a couple of those coming up. One of them that's about full is Saturday, August 17th. It's going to be at Indy Arms. There's still a few seats available. This is $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. It's 4.5 hours to 5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. You can check that out and sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com. And by the way, we've got another course coming to Avon. It's not till November 9th, but you can reserve your seat today. Also sign up right online. That's going to be at Parabellum Firearms and Indoor Range. Again, for Essentials of Indiana Gun Law. Check that out at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again. At work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text LION to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text LION to 42424. That's LION to 42424.
From marshmallow festivals to fireworks on the shore. No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. During Hubler's Freedom to Drive, shop any of our 12 locations and choose from Chevys, Fords, GMCs, Buicks, Nissans, Acuras, Mazdas, Hondas, and many more. Over 2,000 vehicles. All makes, all models, certified vehicles, luxury vehicles, even the hard-to-find ones. Plus, every Hubler Q-certified vehicle is covered by a 128-point vehicle inspection and a free Carfax history report.
'Cause Hubler's got you covered.
No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles during our Freedom to Drive. Visit drivehubler.com or any of our 12 locations.
Cover me!
Warranty on select models less than 9 years old.
The deals and specials are sizzling hot. It's the Central Indiana Gun and Knife Show next Saturday and Sunday at the Delaware County Fairgrounds in Muncie. The best dealers in the region will be at the Central Indiana Gun and Knife Show. Just $6 for adults. Kids 12 and under get in free. Must be 18 or accompanied by an adult. Buy, sell, trade. Next Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Delaware County Fairgrounds in Muncie. For more info, visit centralindianagunshows.com.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Check out what's going on with 93 WIBC.
Head to the WIBC.com contest page and enter for your chance to win a family 4-pack of tickets to the Indiana State Fair, August 2nd through the 18th.
More info online at WIBC.com. Your rights, your responsibilities, your guns. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. And, all right, so let's shift gears. You know, Biden's now a lame duck. Who knows what we're going to see from him? But what do we know about Kamala and Second Amendment rights? Well, we know a number of things. And this even goes all the way back to her time as a prosecutor in California. She participated in submitting an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, to the Supreme Court when it was considering the Heller decision that was considering the very fundamental issue of does the Second Amendment protect an individual right to bear arms at all? Because keep in mind, the theory among a lot of people and a number of lower courts and a lot of so-called judicial scholars was that the preface of the Second Amendment, talking about a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, a lot of people held the belief, and lower courts had so ruled, that if you weren't in a government-organized militia, the Second Amendment did nothing for you. There was no individual right to bear arms. Kamala Harris participated with a group of prosecutors, when she was a prosecutor in California, then urged the Supreme Court to adopt that exact interpretation. That would mean there is no individual right to bear arms protected by the Second Amendment at all. So that tells you a little bit about how she feels about the Second Amendment. Beyond that, she's come up with various proposals, including during her run for the Democrat nomination in 2020. When she didn't last very long, hell, she didn't even make it to the Iowa caucus, if I remember correctly. Didn't win a single delegate. Well, when you drop out before Iowa, that's kind of the way that works. So it was an incredibly unsuccessful campaign. But during the debate, for instance, and running up to the time she dropped out, did she come out with certain proposals? You bet she did. What were they? Do we see those continuing? What has she proposed since then? What should we be concerned about in the form of one Kamala Harris? How do the gun control groups feel about it? We'll get into all of those issues when we come back. We've had a couple of people call in, and I don't have time to go to the phones now. We're coming up on top of the hour, but I will here after this next break. So stick around and give us a call at 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
The deals keep coming at Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield. Tony Katz here at Andy Moore Ford. The people, the selection, the service, everything you want. Shop their wide selection of certified pre-owned vehicles, all marked with more savings, so you can be sure you're driving home with the best deal. And their commercial truck center is currently undergoing big changes, which means bigger and better things for you coming soon. Stop by today. Check out every vehicle they have on the lot and all the electric vehicles they've got. The Mustang Mach-E, the E-Transit, and that F-150 Lightning, all in stock with more arriving daily. The all-electric F-150 Lightning has you covered with seating up to 5, intelligent backup power, and onboard power for all your tools and gear. And they've got the incentives, the rebates, the federal, the state incentives that can save you up to $7,500 instantly on site. Talk to Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield about your new car, your new truck, or your new electric vehicle. Andy Moore Ford, M-O-H-R.
I love Andy.
AndyMooreFord.com.
Do you have an idea for a book? Fiction, nonfiction, or a children's book? We can help you put it together and bring it to market at Dorrance Publishing. We have thousands of testimonials from people just like you that we've helped get their books sold in stores and online. We've even got a service called The Writer's Coach. It's perfect for people that have a book idea in their head and they just need someone to help them put it on paper. Dorrance Book Publishing has been helping people just like you who have a book idea, written or not, for over 100 years. Imagine being counted among the most famous authors in the world with your very own book. Call right now and let us help you turn a book idea into reality. It's easier than you think. You just need a little help. Call us now.
800-879-4098. 800-879-4098. 800-879-4098. That's 800-879-4098.
You expect your home to protect everything you love, but you don't expect the ways water is breaking down your crawl space and damaging your home. Musty smells, sagging floors, mold are just a few signs your crawl space is compromised. But there's one way to get answers to all your concerns. A free home inspection from Indiana Foundation Service. We put water back in its place. Get your free inspection at indianafoundation.com.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
when the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out.
The scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
I'll face a hurricane without meds. Now that's a tough pill to swallow.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/olderadults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Broadcasting from the Technology Recycler Studios, this is Indy's Mobile News. 93 WIBC. WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. The news starts now. 93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
How safe is your car from being stolen? I'm Wes Woodward, and here's what's trending this hour. Research indicates that more than 12,000 vehicles were stolen in the Hoosier State in 2021. Sasha Nixon reports on what you can do to protect your car.
The Indiana BMV recommends parking in well-lit areas, closing and locking all windows and doors before you leave, and hiding all valuable items. You may also remember when IMPD freely gave steering wheel locks to Hyundai and Kia owners. But there is hope for Hoosiers. Consumer Affairs says states like California, Washington, and Colorado often record the most vehicle thefts. Sasha Nixon, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
The Republican property tax plan is no good, says the Libertarian candidate for Indiana governor. Donnie Burgess reports.
Here's the claim from Libertarian Donald Rainwater. Senator Mike Braun's plan does not stop annual property tax increases and does not provide a safety plan for Hoosiers who might lose their home to tax sales. Rainwater says his plan keeps taxes at 1% for 7 years. He has a longer statement planned for Monday. Donnie Burgess, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
A kickback scheme is why a former South Bend city leader is heading to prison. Kurt Darling reports.
As director of South Bend's Housing Authority, Albert Smith and a group of others with the organization paid contractors for work that never actually took place. The contractors would then take that cash and kick a portion of it back to Smith and the others. In all, court documents say the scheme defrauded the Housing Authority out of about $3 million. Smith will be going away for 12 years. Kirk Darling, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
On the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com. Now here's the forecast from the American Standard Cooling Weather Center.
Mild and muggy overnight
overnight tonight, mostly cloudy with lows near 68. A partly to mostly cloudy sky on your Sunday. Afternoon showers and thunderstorms. It's going to be really uncomfortable. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Tara Hastings for 93 WIBC.
Have you lost Indiana Medicaid? At healthcare.gov, you can find a low-cost, quality health plan.
Do plans cover doctor visits?
What about emergency care?
And prescriptions?
All covered and more. Plus, with the new law, 4 out of 5 customers can find a plan for $10 or less per month with financial help. Healthcare.gov is here for you. Enroll today for coverage starting the 1st of next month. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Latrell spent more than 8 years in foster care. His world changed when he was adopted at 15 with help from the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption.
I think about how much we love him, and I wish we could have had him for his entire childhood.
The foundation is changing the lives of thousands of teens waiting in foster care. You can help. Learn more at davethomasfoundation.org.
Hammer and Nigel here, inviting you to join us as we kick off the weekend every Friday around 5:45 with Beer Sample Friday, brought to you by our friends at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
Through their service, veterans have our backs. Now we should have theirs. Learn more at GotYour6.org.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment. And this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. Talking about what we expect to see from President Biden on Second Amendment issues during the remainder of his term. And then also, what do we know about the 2A stance of one Kamala Harris, the presumptive nominee? I'll tell you what, we're going to get into all those issues, but before we do, let's go to the phone lines. We've had a couple of people call in, and Phil has called in and has a question. Phil, what do you got for us?
Hi, Guy. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for calling. What you got?
I was in Michigan in May. My birthday was coming up. My wife said, let's go to Cabela's. You can buy that rifle you want. I'm 74, and I don't see so good close up. And I purchased a lot of firearms. And I go to fill the form out, and all I had was my bifocals. And they had a little laptop on the counter, and I'm trying to adjust it. I must have thumbed that first question because I put down the gun wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And they said there's a process on that. Well, they said you can't buy any more guns here. They said there's a process on that to straighten things out. You know anything about that?
Well, yeah, and that you don't have to worry so much about anything coming out of having answered that question. The first question there says, "Are you the actual transferee of the firearm?" And you have to say yes, or else you can't buy the firearm. That just means they cannot sell you that gun, but that ends that transaction, and there's really nothing to worry about that going forward. If you had lied, for instance, on one of the other, well, let's say you had a felony conviction and you said no to one of the other questions, well, they're also not going to sell you the gun, but then they could also potentially come after you and prosecute you for a crime. That's what they're doing to Hunter Biden, and convicted him of that crime because they asked, are you a user of or addicted to any illegal drugs? And he said no. And that means he got the gun, but it also means that he violated federal law, and he's looking at 25 years in federal prison under 3 different statutes. But that doesn't apply to you because you just said, no, the gun's not really for me. That just means you can't buy the gun. It doesn't mean you lied on the form. It was wrong. The gun was for you, but no one's going to come after and prosecute you for that error because it's not like lying on one of the other questions. So really, if you want that rifle, you can just go somewhere else and buy it. And, make sure that, you fill that and every other question out correctly, and you won't have a problem. So I wouldn't worry about having not gotten the rifle in that case. If that's a rifle you really, really want from that gun shop, you may have to give up on that because you're going to be on record as someone who was in there trying to buy a gun for somebody else, even though that was an innocent error on your part. They're probably not going to sell you a gun. But just find the same gun somewhere else, and you'll be good to go. Let's go back to the phone lines, and Eric is called. Eric, welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
How you doing?
Good, man. What you got?
Well, a couple quick questions. One, I tried to get a duplicate license for my concealed carry permit.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it before in the past, no hiccups at all. Now I can't do it at all. What's the process of doing that now?
Well, you just go online. Go to the state police.
It just ran me around in circles. It wouldn't allow me to do it at all. Just ran me in circles.
Well, that's going to be
on more than one occasion.
Well, it's going to be just a website issue because I've done it on the state police website, Eric. You go to handgun licensing and it says, what do you want to do? And one of the options is apply for a duplicate license. And you got to put your credit or debit card in there and pay them $20 and you get a new license. So I know it's doable on their website. I've done it. You may want to try it on another browser or something along those lines, but I can't tell you anything else. And it may have been a glitch in the system that day, but I can tell you for a fact that's how you do it is on the state police website because I've actually done it myself. Let's go back to what we're talking about, which is Kamala's record on gun control. And again, she came out and she ran in her very brief bid for the Democrat nomination in 2020. Where she bailed out very early on without having won a single delegate in a single convention. But she ran on gun control. And what are some of the things that she said she would do? And what's interesting to me, and which does not bode well for Second Amendment rights, if God forbid she were to be elected, is that she was talking about doing a lot of this by executive action, not by going to Congress. And it was almost like she was giving up on trying to get anything through Congress, so by God, she'll just get it done through executive action. Well, that's where we have this pesky Constitution. Again, because what does it say in the Constitution? Article 1 of the Constitution, the legislative power shall be vested in the Congress of the United States. So if you're passing laws, those have to go through Congress because the vesting clause is seen as exclusive, meaning the legislative power is vested exclusively in the legislative branch, which is Congress. And executive actions can be legitimate to the extent that a president takes executive action telling administrative agencies or telling people that work for him within the executive branch how he wants them to do their job in enforcing the law, which is the executive branch's function. That's okay. But when you move from telling the executive branch how to do executive things and start talking about passing laws that affect people's rights, that's legislative, and you can't do that by executive action. And President Biden has been turned around on that. Him telling the ATF to do things like ban so-called ghost guns, and what the ATF has done on pistol braces, which I've talked about a tremendous amount. Hell, just last week, so-called forced reset triggers. It wasn't even universal with an ATF, but some ATF branches had come out and said forced reset triggers were illegal because they made guns into machine guns. And the Northern District of Texas, bless its little heart, we keep having judges down there do the right thing. It came out and said, no, a forced reset trigger is not a machine gun. So the ATF is doing things that are essentially were legislative, which can't be done. And executive action is subject to the same restriction, where it's truly legislative, where it's creating a law. You can't do that by executive action. But what did Kamala Harris say she wanted to do by executive action when she was running for president? She said she supported a mandatory buyback program of all so-called assault weapons. What's a mandatory buyback program? You know what a mandatory buyback program is? That's confiscation. That's involuntary confiscation where you just get a check at the end of the process from the government. A mandatory buyback program is confiscation. Make no mistake. And that's not me waving my hands in the air, talking gun grabber this and gun grabber that. I get too many of those emails. But it's completely legitimate. Mandatory buyback means exactly that. So the government says, oh, you have a quote-unquote assault weapon. Now, that's where mandatory registration comes in. Why do we keep seeing these mandatory registration proposals? Everybody needs to register their guns. All we want you to do is register them. My goodness, if you're someone who's a law-abiding gun owner, why should you care if anybody knows you have that gun? Well, it's the first step. You register all the guns. Then you know who has the guns. Then you go to those guns as part of a quote-unquote mandatory buyback program and say, you need to give in your gun. No, don't worry. We'll write you a $500 check at the end of the process for your $3,000 AR. or whatever works. And you say, well, no, thank you. I don't choose to sell the government my gun. I'm keeping my gun. No, it's a mandatory buyback program. Well, no, the answer is no. Well, that's where it's either mandatory or it's not. If it's mandatory, that means people with guns show up and kick your door in and take your gun. Presumably take you to jail in the process, because that's how it works. Mandatory means you got to turn it in order to get whatever check they deem appropriate to give you, or they come take it and put you in prison in the process. That's mandatory buyback, because you don't have the option of saying no. And oh, by the way, I've got a real problem with the term buyback. The government has never owned any of my guns. Not one. For a while, I had a client gift me an absolutely beautiful M1 Garand. And I'm not a collector. All my guns have jobs. I have several guns, but I buy a gun because it has some purpose, either self-defense or sporting or hunting or whatever it might be. They all have jobs. I don't acquire guns just to have guns. But I had a client give me this beautiful M1 Garand, and I ended up rehoming it with his permission to someone who would appreciate it more than me. Well, the government owned that gun at one point during World War II. And came out from the government under the civilian marksmanship program, which is a really cool program. I'll get into some detail on that on another day. But other than that, and I don't even have that gun anymore, the government's never owned my guns. If they never own my guns, how can they buy them back? I got a problem with the term. And that's not nitpicking, because buyback sounds so innocuous. No, it's confiscation. Maybe there's compensation as part of it too. And we've seen these before. Australia had them. Have you seen those videos? With the big front end loaders picking up just hundreds, if thousands of guns. And having them fed through shredders, destroyed. And what happened to crime in Australia? What had happened to home invasions out in rural areas after everybody turned their guns in? But that's what Kamala Harris wanted to do. And so mandatory buyback is just that. She also wanted to ban all importation of so-called assault weapons. Now, again, if you're rolling your eyes going, yeah, well, they can never define assault weapon. Well, they can, because there's, for instance, from 94 to 04, we had a quote-unquote assault weapon ban on the books. And it was a ridiculous definition, and it made no damn sense, and it addressed guns based on features. It defined guns as assault weapons, quote-unquote, based on features that had nothing to do with lethality, have nothing to do with effectiveness. Things like flash hiders and folding stocks and pistol grips. And my favorite, the barrel shroud, a little piece of metal that keeps you from burning your hand on the barrel. Ooh, that makes it a scary military-style weapon. No, it doesn't. Don't be an idiot. It may look scary to you. It serves a completely legitimate purpose. It has nothing to do with lethality. So, and they can come up with a definition. They always do. There are assault weapon ban bills pending in Congress right now. They haven't got a hearing. And aren't going to go forward, but they've been filed. And guess what? There's a definition of assault weapon in there. Now, when these authors of these bills get put on the spot and say, well, you please, off the top of their head define assault weapon, they can never do it because they don't understand the area of technology that they're trying to regulate. That's a separate issue. The people who draft these bills can come up with a definition, and they absolutely do. But she wanted to ban importation, have mandatory confiscation, universal background checks. And again, now we're going right back to registration. Why? Because you can't have universal background checks without universal registration. Why not? Tell you what, we're at the quarter hour. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. I'll explain exactly what that means and how people like Kamala Harris try to logically get around what's obvious as a scheme to ultimately take firearms away from Americans. And again, I'm not an alarmist. If you listen to the Gun Guy Show, I'm not a guy who waves his hands in the air. But that's where this is headed. Somebody like Kamala Harris ends up in the White House, and particularly if Democrats would take control of the House and the Senate. That's what's at stake here without any hyperbole involved. Right now, we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
Joe Biden posting a statement saying he is dropping out of the race. In the statement, he did not endorse Kamala Harris. That came on X. It's in the best interest of the party and the country to focus on finishing the term. No, you got told that it was the best interest of the party and the country. What did they offer? The pressure over the last couple weeks has been intense.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for the law offices of Guy Relford. You know, one of the things we really enjoy doing at the law office is expungements. And what are those? Those were for a lot of convictions, not all, but they will seal your record, your criminal history, and or restore your Second Amendment rights if you've lost those rights, for instance, due to a felony conviction. Not all convictions are eligible for expungement. There are some requirements, like you have to have paid all your court costs, fines and fees and whatnot. It has to be at least 8 years since a felony conviction. But you meet those requirements for a lot of convictions. You can have those expunged, get it sealed on your record, and most importantly, restore your Second Amendment rights. Is your conviction eligible for that? Is this something you'd like to do, whether for job purposes, for Second Amendment reasons, whatever else? Contact us through the website. It's relfordlaw.com. We'd be glad to give you a free consultation. It's relfordlaw.com.
High five! Up top! Heck yeah!
Dave's company just got the first ever 5-year price lock guarantee from Comcast Business.
Yeah, 5 years!
It's 5 years of gig speed internet.
High five for gig speed.
5 years of advanced security.
Security win.
And 5 years of a great rate that won't change.
Our rate ain't changing.
All from the company with 99.9% network reliability.
There it is.
He hasn't given this many high fives since Deborah brought in her famous banana bread.
Woohoo!
Now he's got savings.
I'm so excited.
Yep. Dave's feeling it, but it's only for a limited time, so don't wait. Switch today and ask how to get the first ever 5-year price lock guarantee from Comcast Business. Powering 5 years of savings, powering possibilities. Comcast Business.
And it's hurting, but I am not stopping.
Woo! Ends 8/21/24. Guaranteed rate applies to monthly service charge for new customers on qualifying internet bundle, excluding taxes and fees. Other restrictions apply.
My name is Dawn, and I'm a former Marine, and I get my health care at Veteran Health Indiana. Just this week, when I was worried about how my hand was healing, I called the patient care line, talked to a nurse, and had an appointment to see my doctor for the next day. I trust my care team, and I trust Veteran Health Indiana.
Did you or a loved one serve in the United States military? You need to learn more about the veterans' health benefits that could be available to you. Visit vacares.us. That's vacares.us. And thank you for your service.
It's almost here. The best days of summer return this August with your 2024 Indiana State Fair. Join us for endless fun, where there's something for everyone. Take a stroll and enjoy your favorite traditions, or enjoy one of the many new additions. This year, we're celebrating the art and nature of fun, presented by Newfields. Grab discount tickets today at indianastatefair.com. 15 magical days full of fun. Returns August 2nd through 18th. Closed Mondays. Plan your trip today and save big. See you at the fair.
Garage door problems? Call today for service today. Garage Doors of Indianapolis services all makes of garage doors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call today for service today. 875-4577. Call today for service today. Get it fixed right now. Call Garage Doors of Indianapolis at 875-4577. or visit doorstoday.com.
In the morning, call 875-4577. For service today.
Life's full of unexpected joys, like problems with water. That's why there's Michaelis, a crew of 24/7 experts who are rescue ready, day or night, one phone call, for a gazillion disasters. Over 3 decades of restoring your home or business to better than new condition. Water, storms, fire, and wet basements. Life happens. Michaelis happens to help you through it. Call 844-FIX-INDY. Make it Michaelis.
Lanny went to college and racked up huge debt.
A little bit over $100,000.
For a degree he couldn't use? Now what?
I had a friend that went to my computer career and they talked to me about it.
He was done in just months.
I did do it online.
They even helped him get hired immediately after graduation.
One of the things I love about IT is that you can work from anywhere you want.
You could become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at My Computer Career.
It worked for me, and I know it can work for you.
It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
Pierce Jewelers, Carmel's family-owned jewelry store, is dedicated to quality and fine craftsmanship. Let them help you celebrate that special moment in your life. Shop local, shop smart, shop Pierce Jewelers.
Find the path to recovery that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
Now you've got a gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So I was talking about before that, before the break, that a proposal like from Kamala Harris, that there be universal background checks. Well, first of all, what are we talking about? Because if you listen to this, a lot of people will say, wait a minute, there are already mandatory background checks. You go in to buy a gun at the gun store, you have to put you through a background check. Well, that's right. And in some states, at the state level, they also have a background check requirement as between private individuals, transactions, buying and selling guns between private individuals. But that's up to each individual state right now. And there is no federal law that requires background checks as between private individuals. So when they say universal background checks, what they're talking about is background checks as between private individuals. And I get challenged on this. When I say I oppose that, a lot of people will come after me and say, well, what are you talking about? I mean, if you sell a gun to a private individual, don't you want to make sure that person is someone who can legally have a gun? I say, yeah, but it ought to be up to me as a matter of personal responsibility. And the option always is go to a gun store and do a transfer. What's a transfer at a gun store? You go into a gun store and you say, first of all, you ask them, do you guys do transfers? They say, yes, most of them do. And for a fee, a universal fee, I mean, the most common fee used to be $25. Like everything, it's gone up. And whatever the cost is, they'll say, sure, we'll do a transfer for you for blank dollars, $40. You say, okay. Somebody pays them the $40. And technically, the gun store takes that gun into their inventory. They put it into their system. And in order for then the person you're selling the gun to get that gun, they have to fill out the 4473 form that our caller was just asking us about. And they get a background check done on them through NICS. And if they pass the background check, then the gun store actually transfers the gun to them. The money just comes to you, but for the transfer fee that goes to the gun store. If you want to do that today, you can do that, but it's up to you. Why do I oppose mandatory universal background checks? That is, as between private individuals. Because there's no way you can enforce those. There's no way you can enforce those without universal registration. Why do I say that? Because right now, there's no mandatory registration in, I started to say most states. I guess I shouldn't say that. For instance, there's no registration in Indiana. People ask me that question all the time. My dad just gave me a gun, or I inherited a gun from grandpa, and I now need to register it in my name. And I will always say, well, no, you don't. We don't have registration in Indiana. If it's a gun you can legally own, you can legally own that gun. You don't have to go register it somewhere. And I'll always oppose universal registration. for exactly the reasons I talked about, which is registration, in my mind, particularly when it comes to guns that the politicians don't like so-called assault weapons, is a first step toward confiscation. And why do I say you can't have universal background checks without universal registration? Because how do you enforce a system of universal registration, which is, say, to require everyone to do a background check before they transfer a gun? How do you enforce that unless you know who owns every gun today? Unless somebody just narcs on you, somebody just spills the beans on you, informs on you. Where'd you get that gun? Well, producer Jack sold it to me. Oh, did he make you go through a background check? No. Aha, he's guilty. But that requires that information from me. If somebody just finds me with a gun, where'd you get that gun? I don't choose to answer that question. Did you buy it from a private individual? I don't choose to answer that question. And let's say, hypothetically, I did buy it in an illegal, because let's say, hypothetically, we have universal background checks. But no, Jack and I are criminals, and we don't care. We're going to disregard that, and he's going to sell me a gun with no background check. So then I'm caught with that gun. Where'd you get that gun? Oh, I've had this gun forever. Who'd you buy it from? Don't remember. That's it. That's all I'm willing to say. How do they prove that producer Jack sold that gun to me with no background check in violation of the law, unless they knew that producer Jack had it before I did? And how do they know that unless he went down and registered it with the government? You can't enforce universal background checks without universal registration. And don't listen to me, don't believe me on that point. After Sandy Hook, when President Obama wanted to pass gun control measures, he had a number of things he wanted to do. One of those was so-called universal background checks. And he went to the National Institute of Justice, the research arm of the Department of Justice, and said, tell me how I can go about enacting a system of mandatory universal background checks, because I want to pass that. Tell me how that would best work. And you know what? The Democrat-controlled National Institute of Justice came back and told their president at the time, Mr. President, you can't do this without universal registration. Doesn't work. There's no way to enforce it. People who want to enforce this seem to think that guns are like cars, that every one of them is registered to somebody at all times. And that's not how that works. That it's a crime to possess something that's not registered. Well, it is in some states. It's not in the strong Second Amendment states. And so someone like Kamala Harris, who proposes these things, I think it's a pretense to move to what she ultimately wants to accomplish, which is the mandatory confiscation, which she euphemistically calls a mandatory buyback program. Don't listen to it, don't buy it. And these are things that really need to be put on the table, and then we really need to be very emphatic about. Because listen, in the blue states that don't support your constitutional rights anyway, so be it. But in those swing states, where there are gun owners, where there are hunters, you think the hunters in Pennsylvania aren't going to be influenced to some degree by the radical anti-Second Amendment views of Kamala Harris? Is Pennsylvania a swing state? Oh, hell yes. Wisconsin, Michigan? Well, people be motivated to get their ass to the ballot box, knowing what's on the line when you've got someone as radical as Kamala Harris on Second Amendment issues? You would hope so. You would hope so. I'll tell you what, we've had a caller call in. We'll go to the phone lines. Join the discussion, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. Right now, we're taking a break at the bottom of the hour. I'll be right back. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
The Republicans under Holcomb have willfully been the party of big taxes and big government. That's not in dispute. That's not me being negative. I mean, look, your taxes have never been higher. The government, the budget, the role of government in the state has never been bigger, so we'll find out. We're going to find out. Does Braun believe Indiana's headed in a good direction under Holcomb? He'll get a fair shake. Rainwater is going to be with us on Monday.
Kendall and Casey, weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Fox, CNN, other news sources are reporting home prices are expected to decline into 2025, even after the election. Maximize your home sales price now before this downturn with the agent proven to sell for top dollar, Mark Dietel. Maybe you want to maximize equity from your home, but not sure how. Mark Dietel guarantees your home sold at a mutually agreed upon price and deadline, or he will buy it. Listen to what Mitch from Martinsville had to say about working with Mark Dietel. My home was getting too big for me, so I was looking to downsize. After hearing about Mark Dietel on the radio, I decided he was the right choice. Mark was fantastic. He was able to get multiple offers within 48 hours and closed in 30 days. Call the local Indianapolis agent I trust and recommend, and the agent who guarantees your home sold or he'll buy it. Call Mark Dietel at 317-755-4232 for all the details, or go online to markdietel.com. That's Mark, Dietel.com. Tell him Rob sent you.
It's just alcohol. Everybody drinks. You may have already heard this statement from your teen. I'm Tammy Silverman with Indiana Youth Institute. Alcohol is the substance most commonly abused by teens. Survey data shows that 2 in 10 Indiana high school students reported drinking in the past month, and more than half of Hoosier teens say it would be easy to get alcohol. How do you talk with your teen about alcohol use, especially if they see peers or adults drinking? First, understand that your child may point out contradictions in our society's views on alcohol. It's okay to acknowledge those facts. Talk with your teen about the many risks of alcohol use. During your conversation, you can both validate their views and uphold your family values. You are the first line of defense against alcohol abuse, so don't be afraid to talk to your teen. What you say has a big influence on their decision to drink or not. This Kids Count Minute is a message from Indiana Youth Institute. For more parent tips, visit IYI.org.
Kids count on you.
This hour on WIBC is powered by Pierce Jewelers, designers of fine custom jewelry.
Fox News, I'm Ann Carrick. Former President Trump, the keynote speaker at a Bitcoin conference in Nashville today, using the opportunity to criticize his new opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris.
She's a radical left lunatic, defund the police, all of the different things. And so far she's got a little honeymoon going on right now, but when people hear about her, and she's against crypto, by the way, and she's against it very big. So I just want to let you know, you got to get out. You got to get out and vote.
The Harris 2024 campaign has yet to clarify its crypto position. California's biggest wildfire, the Park Fire, has torn through an area the size of Los Angeles.
I hate the situation, the fire and all the hurt and all the pain around me. I mean, there are some people that are really suffering. I mean, I haven't really lost anything.
Roy Gordon is a resident of Forest Ranch in Chico, California. America is listening to Fox News.
From marshmallow festivals to fireworks on the shore, no matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. During Hubler's Freedom to Drive, shop any of our 12 locations and choose from Chevys, Fords, GMCs, Buicks, Nissans, Acuras, Mazdas, Hondas, and many more. Over 2,000 vehicles. All makes, all models, certified vehicles, luxury vehicles, even the hard-to-find ones. Plus, every Hubler Q-certified vehicle is covered by a 128-point vehicle inspection and a free Carfax history report.
'Cause Hubler's got you covered.
No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. During our Freedom to Drive, visit drivehubler.com or any of our 12 locations.
Cover me!
Warranty on select models less than 9 years old.
You expect your home to protect everything you love, but you don't expect the ways water is breaking down your basement and damaging your home. Mold, cracks, and of course visible water are just a few signs your basement is compromised. But there's one way to get answers to all your concerns. A free home inspection from Indiana Foundation Service. We put water back in its place. Get your free inspection at indianafoundation.com.
Prescription opioids can be addictive and dangerous.
Opioid pain medication took everything that I had. Nothing mattered more than getting my fix. I was on the verge of being homeless. My house was being foreclosed on. Knowing that it could have been prevented makes it worse. It just takes one.
Prescription opioids. It only takes a little to lose a lot. Visit cdc.gov/RxAwareness.
He's a Second Amendment attorney. He's an NRA certified firearms instructor. He's the gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. I'll tell you what, we've had a couple of callers call in, so let's go to the phone lines. And Joe has a question. Joe, welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
Hi. On Biden's Supreme Court reform, well, there's supposed to be co-equal branches of government. Now, the president, he does have a term limit. So the Supreme Court would have a term limit, so Congress should have a term limit. That'd be a great way to kill it because, include Congress in it. Ain't none of them going to vote for that because they've never done that,
Yeah, well, there's a big difference, though, in that the Constitution speaks to a term limit, quote unquote, or at least what the term should be of a Supreme Court justice, and it says shall serve during good behavior. So what's that mean? It means for life, unless there's quote unquote bad behavior, meaning an impeachable offense. So the Constitution says he can't do what he wants to do on a term limit for the Supreme Court justices. Secondly, could there be a term limit for representatives and senators? A lot of us would love that. A lot of us would love to see that. But would that be constitutional? What's interesting on that, Joe, is that actually there was a decision on this back in 1995, and it involved the state of Arkansas, but Arkansas wasn't the only state. There were a number of states actually changed their state constitution to say that if you wanted to represent that state in the Senate or the House of Representatives, I believe, that you couldn't be eligible to be on the ballot for the House of Representatives if you'd served 3 or more terms, or you couldn't be eligible to run for the Senate from that state if you've been elected to 2 or more terms. And several other states had enacted something similar. And that went up to the Supreme Court. And there's a case called U.S. Term Limits versus Thornton. And it addresses these various states. And it was a close decision. It was a 5-4 decision. And the majority said, listen, it's very clear that eligibility to run for Congress as a representative or as a senator, that the Constitution intended for there to be a uniform system throughout the country, and that we don't want individual states changing that so they have different requirements, different restrictions than other states, and you would think that would leave open the question to whether Congress could pass term limits for itself as opposed to individual states imposing those term limits. Now, we can debate what the likelihood is of anybody in Congress being willing to vote, even though some have run on this, have made it part of their campaign. But how likely would it be for Congress to actually pass what the votes, by the votes required to limit them in their own jobs? Unlikely. But it's a separate question from whether that would be constitutional or not. What's interesting is in that same decision, the Thornton decision, this is back in 1995, that court said that it would actually require a constitutional amendment to impose term limits. Now, I think you could easily label that what we lawyers like to call dicta, meaning language that isn't inherent in the holding itself and not part of the precedent that court sets that other courts need to follow, because it was addressing specifically whether individual states could have different requirements than some other states, for instance, so that we don't have a uniform system across the country. If Congress were to limit itself, you'd have a uniform system applicable in every state. So that concern would go away. But the court specifically said in the absence of a properly passed constitutional amendment, term limits aren't constitutional. And again, you can say it's a different issue, and I think that has some merit. In fact, Justice Thomas actually had a dissent in that case. It was a 5-4 decision, so 4 justices disagreed and said nothing in the Constitution deprives the people of each state of the power to prescribe eligibility requirements for the candidates who seek to represent them in Congress. The Constitution is simply silent on the question. But the problem is the general consensus seems to have been, and I'm sure this is going to be an excuse you would hear from senators and representatives when called upon to vote on it, that Congress can't impose term limits that have to be done through a constitutional amendment. I personally think that's an open question, but that's why you get some reluctance, and at least those are the excuses that we hear, although I think that Supreme Court case really is addressing a little bit different issue. Let's go back to the phone lines, and Brian has called. Again, I see pretty well up close, but these the phone system here, I'm looking at black font on a dark purple background. It's damn near impossible to read. But I hope I got that right. Brian, welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
Yeah, you got it right.
All right, man. What you got?
Hey, Guy, I love your show.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, man, I goofed. My daughter recently got married in the Gatlinburg area, Sevierville, and we rented a cabin there. And when I left, I forgot to get my wife's gun from the bedside drawer.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, we got home, got settled in, and a couple of days later got a call from the Sevierville Sheriff's Office. Hey, you left a gun here. And, he said, hey, this, he was very understanding, very good guy. He said, this happens all the time. He said, you can come get the gun, but you have to come down in here in person and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you is this, is there going to be some sort of a penalty or fee when I show up for that? And B, my biggest concern is, will it affect any future purchases that I might make on any firearms?
Yeah, and what state did you say this was in, Brian?
Well, this would have been Tennessee.
Okay. And listen, and I'm not a Tennessee lawyer, and I can't tell you exactly what the laws are down there. I just kind of addressing what most laws are in most states on issues like this. Could the sheriff's department have some kind of a storage fee or something like, I don't know. That's going to be up to that individual sheriff. I doubt it. But there may be something small along those lines. I wouldn't worry about that so much. I think really we chalk this one up to good luck in the sense that, bad things could have happened. I mean, it doesn't take too much creativity to think, wow, they could have rented that, the cabin to somebody else, and a young kid get a hold of it, and that really goes into why I don't think you have anything to worry about on future purchases, because to me it would require you to be accused of a crime and then be convicted of a crime, and listen, I've seen folks who leave guns where they can be acquired by people who shouldn't have guns, including young kids, and somebody gets hurt. And I've seen them get charged with crimes like criminal recklessness with a deadly weapon. It is a crime here in Indiana. But that's after somebody got hurt and someone said, hey, they were reckless and how they dealt with this firearm. And in fact, I tried a case involving similar allegations in Hendricks County not long ago, went to a jury trial. And we won. And my client was found not to have committed a crime at all. In fact, jury was out a very short period of time, so we won, I think, convincingly. But my point is that could there be criminal charges in a situation like that? Yeah, potentially. But it didn't happen because nobody got hurt, and you've got a cooperative sheriff, and it doesn't sound like the people who rented the place were upset about it. So no guarantees, and I'm not familiar with Tennessee law. I'm certainly not a Tennessee lawyer, but I think the likelihood of this having any effect on future purchases or on your Second Amendment rights generally are next to nothing. Talk to a rental car company sometime about how many guns they find in rental cars that people turn in. And I've had a few people call me and that they've done that and they were concerned. And it tends to be a little bit of embarrassment, and that's that. And nothing more. I think that's probably what you're looking at is you might get a lecture, from the sheriff on maintaining control of your firearm and responsible storage and yada, yada. But other than that, I don't think you're looking at any additional downside from there. I'll tell you what, that takes us to the 3/4 hour. So we're taking a break. We'll come back and go through our last segment of the Gun Guy Show here. We'll take your calls as well if we have time. 317-239-9393 here on WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
One thing I'm seeing right now is the hero tour for Joe Biden. All of these same people that were taking that dagger and putting it directly into his back politically, They're the ones saying, what a great American. Oh, look at Joe Biden. He was such a great president. Well, if that was the case, then why did you just fire him?
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our most popular classes are Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class. We've got a couple of those coming up. One of them Saturday, August 17th at Indy Arms here on the northeast side of Indy. It's 5.5 hours, 5.5 to 6 of the most important, 4.5 to 5. I keep expanding this thing. It's 4.5 to 5 hours of the most important legal information that you need as an Indiana gun owner. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. We'd love to see you there on August 17th at Indy Arms. We've got another one that's coming out a little bit later. It's going to be November 9th out at Parabellum Firearms and Indoor Range in Avon, Indiana. If you're out on the far west side or in Avon, Danville, that area, we'd love to see you there. Parabellum Firearms and Indoor Range on November 9th. Plenty of seats available in that one. $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. And sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
The deals keep coming at Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield. Tony Katz here at Andy Moore Ford. The people, the selection, the service, everything you want. Shop their wide selection of certified pre-owned vehicles, all marked with more savings, so you can be sure you're driving home with the best deal. And their commercial truck center is currently undergoing big changes, which means bigger and better things for you coming soon. Stop by today. Check out every vehicle they have on the lot and all the electric vehicles they've got. The Mustang Mach-E, the E-Transit, and that F-150 Lightning, all in stock with more arriving daily. The all-electric F-150 Lightning has you covered with seating up to 5, intelligent backup power, and onboard power for all your tools and gear. And they've got the incentives, the rebates, the federal, the state incentives that can save you up to $7,500 instantly on site. Talk to Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield about your new car, your new truck, or your new electric vehicle. Andy Moore Ford, M-O-H-R. I love Andy. AndyMooreFord.com.
The deals and specials are sizzling hot. It's the Central Indiana Gun and Knife Show next Saturday and Sunday at the Delaware County Fairgrounds in Muncie. The best dealers in the region will be at the Central Indiana Gun and Knife Show. Just $6 for adults. Kids 12 and under get in free. Must be 18 or accompanied by an adult. Buy, sell, trade. Next Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Delaware County Fairgrounds in Muncie. For more info, visit centralindianagunshows.com.
Tomorrow starts at IU Indianapolis. Our students are the engine of Indiana's future, in powerful partnership with the country's leading businesses and organizations. We prepare each student to make impacts that matter right here at home, inspiring bold endeavors and life-changing careers. Bring on tomorrow, IU Indianapolis. Discover how we're powering what's possible at go.iu.edu/tomorrow.
It's not just adults who can feel stressed out, or children feel stressed too. I'm Tammy Silverman of Indiana Youth Institute. Between school demands, maintaining friendships, and expectations from adults, it's no wonder that children sometimes feel stressed out. But unlike adults, experts say children may not be able to recognize stress or know how to cope. Luckily, you can help your child handle the challenges they're facing. Start by making yourself available to talk and be a good listener. Let your child express their views, and when you respond, focus on your child's feelings rather than your own. You can also ask your child what they need from you, whether it's advice or help solving a problem. But if stress is still overwhelming, experts recommend you reach out to a licensed mental health professional to make sure your child gets the support they need and deserve. This Kids Count Minute is a message from Indiana Youth Institute. For more parent tips, visit IYI.org.
Kids Count on you.
You want to listen all day to WIBC, but you don't always have time. Don't worry. There's a podcast for that. The WIBC Mashup. Daily highlights from your favorite hosts, Tony Katz, Kendall and Casey, and Hammer and Nigel. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back for the last segment here of the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. And we're talking about Kamala Harris going to into the White House potentially, and God, just God forbid. But I got to tell you, during the break, I got a little ping on my phone that I had a bunch of Facebook notifications I hadn't looked at, and so here during the break, I jumped over to take a look, and my Facebook account has been given restrictions as a punishment for a post that I made earlier today, and I don't know. It says I can't post videos, and I can't I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff because I was a bad boy on Facebook, and you know what I did? I posted a joke, and this was in response to a Hammer and Nigel post. By the way, quick footnote, a week from yesterday, this coming Friday, we're going to be doing the Hammer and Nigel show live from the State Fair, and I'm sitting in for Hammer. So it's going to be me and Nigel at the State Fair. So if you're looking for a day to go to the State Fair, man, do it next Friday. And come find us out at the State Fair. I have no idea where we're going to be. I'm sure I'll be able to release more details between now and then. But doing the Hammer and Nigel show, I'm sitting in for Hammer at the State Fair. That'll be a hoot. But at any rate, so I just got this notice because of a post where I responded to Hammer and Nigel. And what they were talking about is, the completely ridiculous display we saw during the opening ceremonies of the Paris Olympics last night, where, among other things, I mean, this thing was just so incredibly woke all the way around. But one thing that's just incredibly offensive for a lot of us, me included, is during these ceremonies, they essentially mocked the Last Supper and the famous painting of the Last Supper with Christ and the disciples, and recounting a story right out of the Bible, and they essentially reenacted during these opening ceremonies the Last Supper with a bunch of drag queens. I think that's the right term. It looked to me like they were like bearded dudes and a bunch of guys in dresses and wigs and whatnot, and they're reenacting the Last Supper during the Olympic opening ceremonies. And a lot of us looked at that and said, "Are you kidding me? Why? Why?" But at any rate, Hammer and Nigel in this post said, "Listen, it's now our obligation to spend the entire time of the Olympics. And listen, watch the Olympics, don't watch the Olympics. I'm not big into boycotts. I don't know. For some reason, I'm less excited about the Olympics anyway this year. And that opening ceremony has ticked a lot of people off. But consistent with their direction, Hammer and Nigel, we need to spend the entire time of the Olympics this year mocking the French. I put, consistent with my role around here as the gun guy, I posted, hey, by the way, I've got a French rifle for sale, never fired, only dropped once. And obviously that's a reference to the fact that the French generally, when confronted by an adversary, including those marching into Paris, will simply give up. That's the other joke I posted, which is how many French soldiers does it take to defend Paris? And the answer is nobody knows. They've never tried. But as part of that, the joke is French rifle for sale, never fired, only dropped once. And a lot of people get the joke, and that's that's hilarious. Guess who's now restricted on Facebook? Because I broke Facebook's rules by listing a gun for sale on Facebook. And I just, during the break, I challenged it, and I went, no, it was a joke. It's mocking the French because they've never defended their country, and then they let the Nazis, march in and take over the country during World War II. No. I'm not trying to sell a rifle on Facebook. So there you go. A lot of us get a big kick over that. I'll tell you what, we've only got about a minute left here in this Gun Guy show. One thing I'll talk about very briefly, a story that caught my eye, and this comes out of a suburb of Milwaukee, in a town called Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. And it said a citizen was injured while he was at a gas station. He was pumping gas and had to draw his gun and defend himself against 5 individuals as part of a carjacking. 5 individuals who all attacked this guy as part of a carjacking. I want you to think about that scenario. Next time somebody says, "Oh, we need a limit on magazine size because you don't need more than 10 rounds to defend yourself under any scenario." Think about that one. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Everyone's talking about Galaxy Concrete Coatings and their transformation, like your neighbor Brett.
We did Galaxy for the sidewalks and also the porch. The porch had a few